Hey devs, welcome back to another GDevelop 5 tutorial. So today we're taking a look at the peer-to-peer feature which was first added in GDevelop 5 Beta 19.9. So we'll be taking a look at all of its features and also creating an online multiplayer game with it. GDevelop supports peer-to-peer connections to enable basic multiplayer games. This works through the concept of remote events. Connect multiple instances of the game using your ID before remotely triggering conditions on the other instances. So this might sound strange for now, but you'll understand better in this video. Okay, so let's take a look at the warnings and probably information we need to know before we try out this feature. Okay, so let's open the GDevelop wiki right here. Okay, so first of all, we have this. This is an experimental feature. You have to take note of that. It is subject to change and may contain bugs. Your feedback is welcome to improve this feature. Also, this extension is not suitable for all types of multiplayer games and is potentially unsafe against cheating. As every instance of the game is connected directly to each other, there is no machine that can be considered trusted more than another. As such, it is had to verify if someone is cheating, unlike dedicated servers. So P2P supports a maximum of 250 simultaneous connections, so this is why it's not the best way to create an online multiplayer game, but for now in GDevelop it's kind of the only way unless you want to use JavaScript to achieve this, and is therefore also not suited for very large multiplayer focused games like MMOs. Okay, so there we go. That's all we need to know for now. Okay, so before we begin, thank you all for liking my previous video. You should like the video, don't worry, I'll wait. Okay, so just like the video. Okay, and also subscribe if you haven't. Okay, now I'm hoping you like the video and subscribe. Okay, so let's create an online multiplayer game in GDevelop 5. Here we go. This is a project we'll be using to create an online multiplayer game. So let's go to our project manager. So to save time, I've added in the objects into the various scenes, so we minimize the length of this video. We'll still go through them just to show you the various objects, and after that, go right into the events. So here we go. First of all, in our lobby, we have this. So in the lobby scene, we have the join button and the create button. So in our events, we have our events field already. These are just some basic events where once you click on the join scene, the join button, it takes you to the join scene. And once you click on the create button, it takes you to the create scene. So let's take a look at this create scene first, then we take a look at the join scene. So the create scene, here we have this which says please paste this ID in another client. So now what is this client? Let's talk about the clients first. So the client is a running game which is connected to a brokering server. So this feature sends data from one client to another. Now what is this ID right here? So the ID, this is actually a way to identify a client. Every client has a specific ID. If no ID is given, one will be generated, but in this case, automatically generates the ID. This ID may look like this or like this, depending on the brokering server. Okay, so what's the brokering server? Well, it is a server with a fixed well-known address that stores all the addresses which are the IDs of the connected clients and give them to each client so that they can connect to each other. So that's the brokering server, and that's the ID, and that's the client. So let's take a look at the objects in this scene. So first we have the copy. This would copy the generated ID, because in our create scene here it generates an IDs. So this would copy the ID of BG. This is actually the background of our ID text. So our ID text is the text which would display the ID. So here we have our info. Our info is actually this text right here, and we have the arrow right here. The arrow is on this like red dots right here, so this would display the arrow once there's an arrow with the P2P. So there we go, and the connect would connect to the game. So that's it. Let's check out the join. So here we go. So in our join scene, this is where you paste the ID which you obtained from the create scene right here. So you paste the ID obtained from another client, and here in this case it is the create scene. So we have this, which is the background. We have our arrow text right here, just like our create scene. We have this info too, which is the info. This does nothing. Okay, so we have the ID and 3 text. So this is the text object which would be modified to display the ID which we copied from this scene. So that's why we have the paste. Once we click on the paste, it modifies it. So to let us enter the text from our keyboard, we have our ID entry right here. So this is the ID entry, and this is our ID entry text. Okay, so how are we able to copy from one scene to the other? We can do that thanks to this extension, which is a clipboard extension. You can download this extension by clicking on the search for new extensions right here and searching for clipboard. There we go. So here I have it installed. So yours should display install. Mine displays reinstall/updates. So there we go, and close. So we have the two games which we'll be working with, which is the platformer game and the top-down game. For this tutorial, we'll be working with the platformer game, and then I would explain the top-down game. Okay. Okay, so let's begin. First of all, in our create scene. So let's add an action which would get the ID once we click on copy. So the ID, the get ID, is an expression. So let's check out the expressions which we get with the P2P extension. So these are a list of all the expressions we get with this. So we have the P2P get event data. This is a string in the bracket. So this returns the data received from a specified event was last triggered. That's a string, and there we go. So the P2P gets ID. This is what we'll be using now. We need to get the ID. So this gets the client's ID of the current game instance. So we also have the P2P get last connected pair. You can just get the pair who just recently connected. This gets the ID of the newly connected pair. This is also the client, so it gets the ID of the newly connected clients. So we also have the P2P get last disconnected pair. So this gets the pair who just disconnected, or in this case the client gets the ID of the latest pair that is disconnected. So we have the P2P get last error. We'll be using this also. So this gets the description of the last P2P error. This will display the error. There we go. So let's go back. We'll be using this. So in our create events, first of all, let's add a new event. Let's add a condition. Okay, so copy, and cursor touch is on the object. There we go. Cursor touch is on that object. Okay, and add a condition. Mouse button released. There we go. So the mouse button released, and the button to test would be the left button, which is the primary button. Okay, so once this is true, add an action. Let's write, let's get the clipboard. Here we go. So write text in the clipboard. So now we'll fill in the expression, which is the P2P. There we go. P2P gets ID. So this will write the ID in the clipboard once we hit copy. Okay. Okay, so next we need to change the text of this ID text to the ID which we obtained. So in here, add new events, add an action. So let's modify, select the text. Here we go, the ID text, and let's modify this text based on sign set to the value of the expression. There we go, gets ID. Okay, so now this would display the ID in the text, the ID. Now for the last event for this scene, we need to center this text, which is the ID text. To do that, we need to change the X position. So there we go, and add an action. Select the text, ID text, and position, which is the X position. We're centering it on the X axis. So sign set to value. This would be the scene window width. There we go, the scene window width divided, there we go, divided by 2. Subtract the width of the ID text. So here we go, ID text, there we go, and the width of it divided by 2. So this would center it in the scene always. Now for our join scene. So let's go to the events, and in here let's add a new event. So just like we did in our create scene where we added the ID to the clipboard, now we need to read the ID and change the text in memory of our ID entry right here. So let's check this out. Let's add a condition. Now once this to be true, once when collision, or once the cursor touch is on the paste button and the left mouse button is released. So in our event, let's add a condition. So first select the object, paste, and cursor touch is on this object just to make sure it's on it, and add a condition, and mouse button release, which is the left mouse button. So once this button is released and it's on the paste, add an action. Select your ID text, ID entry. Let's select the text in memory of it, sign, add value to read. There we go, to read the text of the clipboard. So that's the expression for clipboard, to read the text. Okay. Now we need to change the text, this text right, the ID entry text to the ID entry string. So let's go to our join events, add a new event, add a condition. So here we go, let's select our ID entry text and modify the text right here. Sign set to the value of our ID entry. There we go, to our ID entry string. So that's the text entered into our ID entry. Okay. So basically all it does is what it sets the ID entry, it modifies the text of our ID entry to this text right here, to the text which was copied. Okay, and the final event for this scene, we need to position this text in the center at all times. So add a new event, add an action. Let's select the text which is the ID entry text, and let's select the position which would be the X position of an object, sign set to. So we need to get the, for the value we need to get the scene window width divided by 2, then subtract it from the button which is the ID entry text. There we go. So the width of the ID entry text divided by 2. So this would position it in the center always. Okay, so let's add an XNode event. So in our project manager, XNode events, let's add an XNode event. I'll rename this. You can set this to whatever you want. For this, I'll name this P2P. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's select that, and I'll open it up, and here we go. So let's choose a scene. You can select any scene you want. For this, I'll go with the create scene and choose. So here I would add all the events which are necessary for P2P. First of all, we need to connect to a broker server. This is the most important thing. If you don't connect to a broker server, there is no way you can achieve this. So we have two options for setting up a broker server. First, we have the default or the public server, which is provided by Per.js. This server is not owned or maintained by GDevelop. We also have the custom server. This is recommended. This can run locally on your machine or in the cloud. So I would show you how to set a default server, how to set it with a custom server, how to start a local server, and how to deploy it to a cloud hosting. This would make it an online multiplayer. Okay, so first of all, let's work with default server. So add a new event, add a condition. So here we go, at the beginning of the scene. Okay, add an action. So here we go, that's the server. Okay, so connect to a broker server, connect to a default server. Okay, so this connects to the server provided by Per.js. Okay, so let's link this XNode event to our create and join scene. So here we go, let's go to the events and add right here, and link. Okay, so should have this P2P, pull this to the top. Okay, so just copy this, copy, and all the way to my join. We go join events, and paste this and take this up. Okay, so let's go to our lobby and preview this. So create, and we should get an ID. So there we go, that's the ID. So it's now connected to the default server. Okay. Okay, so next up, let's start up a custom local server. To do that, you need to head over to nodejs.org and download Node.js. You should download the long-term support version. It's recommended for most users. So pause this video, download, install it, and come back. Okay. Okay, so I'm hoping you must have done that. So let's go back to gdevelop, and Windows R on your keyboard. Okay, so this brings up the run dialog. This is it right here. So type the name of the program, folder, documents, or internet resource, and Windows will open it. So we need to open the terminal, so you need to type in cmd and hit OK. So this should open up the terminal. Now we need to install purge.js. So to do that, npm, you need to hit npm, that's the node package manager, and install per and a -g. There we go. So once you hit enter, or pause this video and wait for this to install. Okay, so we now have installed. So every subsequent time, or to start our server, we have to do purge.js -p. So you can just go with -p or -- and ports, they'll both work. So let's go with the -p and the port of 9000. So this was started at a port of 9000. Okay, so we have that running right here. Okay, so don't close this window, let's minimize this. You have to keep that window open. Okay, so let's go to our P2P xnode events, and here let's toggle disable this, toggle disable, add a new event, add a condition. So at the beginning of the scene, here we go, and let's add an action. Let's get a server. Here we go, connect to a default server. Okay, so here we go. The host, we have the port, we have path, and we have key. So let's go through every single one of these. Okay, we have the server host. This is the server host. There we go. So for this, we'll type in local host. Okay, because we're using a local host. Now for the port is the server port. So use this 9000. That's exactly what we filled in here. As you can see, 9000. That's the port. Now for the path, that's slash minimizes. So there we go, you have to put this in double quotes and slash. And for the key, you don't have to fill in anything for the key. Okay, so this should connect to the local host. Let's go to our lobby right here, and let's preview this. Now we should get an ID. Here we go, create, and here we go. So it looks a little bit different from the default server ID. This is the local server ID. So there we go. So that's how to set up a custom local server. There. Okay, so let's go fill in some events to change to the main game, which is a platformer game. So in our P2P right here, let's add a new event right here. So add a condition. Let's select the object connect. So once the cursor or touch is on the object connect, okay, and add a condition, mouse button is released. This would be the left mouse button. Okay, so once this is released, we want to trigger an event. Basically, this is what we'll be doing in peer-to-peer, triggering events across clients. So let's check that out. Add an action. So trigger an event. There we go. All events on all connected clients. So this will trigger it on all clients connected. And there we go. So events name. So you can select. You can set any event name you want. For this, I'll be selecting connected. Okay, so extra data, that's optional, so just set double quotes. Okay, so now we need to connect to the P2P client. So add an action, P2P. There we go, sorry. Okay, so connect to another client. Now here we need to paste the ID of another client. Now we can fill in our ID text entry string right here in our join scene. Here we go. So right here, once we click on paste, it changes the text right here. So it changes the text in memory of our ID entry to the clipboard text, which is the ID we copied from our create scene right here. So now that's in the ID is in the text, is in the memory of our ID entry. So in our P2P, we can just set this to connect to the connect to another client and set in our ID entry right here. Okay, so it's not showing the ID entry because this is not the associated scene. We can change that by coming to our open settings and join right there. So now it should display the ID entry. There we go. So that's the ID entry dot string. Okay. So let's set this back and to create. Okay. So now let's check for the event which was triggered right here. So add a new event, add a condition right here. So trigger events triggered by pair and events name like we made here, which is connected. Okay, so what is data loss mode? Well, according to the wiki, with no data loss mode, like right now it's set to no, every remote event is queued, and on every frame, if there is one in the queue, we take the oldest one and handle it. This makes sure every data is processed or taken into account. With the data loss mode activated, it doesn't queue the data but only store the latest occurrence of the remote events. This means only the latest data is processed and outdated data would be discarded. Okay, so with this, we set it to yes. Okay, so right here, once we click on connect, it triggers the event connected, and in here this checks for the event. So once the event connected is received from another client, let's copy this, copy, paste, and now let's change to the scene. So scene, change to the scene platform game. Okay, so there we go. So once this event is received, it will change to the scene platform game. Okay, so now let's take a look at some of the conditions which come with the P2P communication. So there we go, add a new event, add a condition. So P2P, first let's take a look at the P2P is ready. Here we go. So true if the peer-to-peer extension initialized and ready to use. So once we set this, once we invert this, it would be is not ready to use. So that's the invert of it. Okay, so once it's not ready to use, let's modify the text, ID text right here. So it displays connecting, so modify the text sign set to value. We want it to display connecting now, so connecting dot 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 and double quotes. Okay, so we have that in quotes. Okay, so once it's not ready, it would display this. And now okay, so let's take a look at another event which is P2P error occurred. So add a new event, add a condition. There we go, P2P, here we go, P2P, an error occurred. So we have this, triggers once when an error occurs, use the P2P, get last error. So this is what we'll be using, expression to get the contents of the error if you want to analyze it or display it to the user. Okay, so right here, add an action. Let's get the text, which is the error text, and let's modify it, sign, set to the expression, which would be get. There we go, so get the here we go, get last error. So that would get the description of the last P2P error. So we'll test this out in a minute, but first we need to make sure error text is always centered. So add a new event, add an action. So select your text error and the position, which is the X position of an object, sign set to the value of the scene window width divided by 2, subtracted by the error text. There we go, error dot width, double quotes, error dot width divided by 2. Okay, so this is make sure it's always centered. Now to display the error, let's place our port in quotes. So this would display an error. It should not be in quotes. So let's go to our lobby, preview this, create, and there we go. So we have this error. That's how to test the error. So it works, it shows this. Okay, so we have that error. So let's close this. Once again, let's go back to the P2P. We don't need this. Okay. I'll take this out. There we go. So let's go to our platformer game scene, and here we go. So now we have this. So in this scene, all we have is our player 2, this is our player 2, this is our player 1, and this is the floor, and this is the background. Just a basic platform which uses the platformer. Here we go, which uses the platform object behavior. I've unchecked default controls, so we'd have to set the controls in the events for both. So let's do that. Let's go to our event and let's add a new event. So our player 1, we use the WSAD, so let's start with this. So key pressed, there we go. Okay, so once this key is pressed, we need to make our player jump. So add an action, so player 1 and simulates the jump key press. There we go, simulate jump key press for player 1. So this would make our player jump on one client. Now to make it jump on all connected clients, you need to trigger an event, which we'll be doing now. Add an action, so trigger an event. There we go, trigger events on all connected clients. Now you can set this to whatever name you want, like I said earlier. So for this, I will name in my player 1 jump. Okay, optional data, that's optional, so there we go. Okay, so add a new event, add a condition, so trigger. Okay, so events triggered by pair, which was player 1 jump. Okay, data loss mode, I'll set that to no. Okay, so as this key is pressed, it would make a player jump. Now we need our player to jump on all connected clients, so you copy this and we paste this here again. So now once you press up, it would simulate jumping on the clients and then trigger this event on all connected clients, which would make our player 1 jump on all connected clients. So we need to do this for every single position to save time. I'll just copy this and add new events. There we go. Just paste this right here, so paste. So now let's make our player go to the right, which would be D for now. So simulate pressing right. Okay, so this is me pressing right for player 1. Trigger event player 1. I'll name this right. Okay, so trigger the event player 1 right and events. Here we go. Player 1 right. So once the event player 1 right is received, simulate pressing right. There we go for our player 1. Once again, let's do that for the left. Here we go. Paste this and so A key. Okay, now name this player 1 left. Okay, so trigger the event player 1 left and simulate pressing left for our player 1. So once event player 1 left is received, simulate pressing left key. Okay, so we have that. So that's all the movements we need for this. Go to our player, would only jump, move to the right and move to the left. So if you have multiple or more actions you want your player to perform, you'd have to add this. You have to trigger the event on all connected clients. So there we go, that's it for our player 1. Now for our player 2. Okay, let's do this. Add a condition. So player 2, search and key pressed. There we go, key pressed, and that would be the up key. Okay, so up key is pressed. Okay, and add an action. Let's simulate player 2, and that's a jump. Sorry about that. Okay, so simulate jump key press, and there we go. Once again, we need to trigger the event on all connected clients. So add an action, player 2, and trigger the event. There we go, trigger the event on all connected clients. Event name, I'll name this player 2 jump. So this would be the event triggered, optional. There we go, extra data, that's optional. Okay, so once this event is received, add a condition. So trigger, there we go, so events triggered by pair. Once again, let's select this, let's set this player 2 and jump. Data loss? No. Okay. Oh no, I made a mistake here. It's player 2 jump. Okay, so once this is received, we needed to simulate the jump key on all connected clients. Okay. So there we go, let's select this. I'll just copy this once again. Copy. new event. Let's paste this. Okay, now for the right key pressed, right. There we go. So simulates pressing right. Okay. So once again, events name, right, and here we go. So events received, right, and simulates pressing right. There we go. Okay. Okay, so now for the left, add a new event. I'll just add multiple events. So sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so we have this now. So let's paste this once again. Paste, and here we go. So we have done that for the right, so let's do it for the left. So once left key is pressed. Okay, so left key is pressed, simulates pressing left. Okay. And once again, here we go. Left. Okay, and play 2. Left. Okay, so just in case you're confused about the simulating pressing left and right, you'd have to watch my platform game series. They explained how to create a platform game, how to actually use or how the simulate right key and simulate left key or the simulate key press actually works. Okay, so a link would be in the description below. Okay, so let's simulate the left key in here, and okay. Okay, so just to make sure all this works, let's preview this. Okay, so it works here, sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it works. There we go. So now let's preview this and close this, and let's go to our lobby and try to preview this as a multiplayer game. So preview. Okay, so this is our first client, and let's preview. Let's launch another preview. You can do that by right-clicking right here and launch another preview. Okay, so now we have 2 previews running. So for those of you who wonder what's actually going on with the terminal, let's bring up a terminal, and we have this. So let's show the window side by side. Here we go, window side by side. So we have a terminal here, we have our first client and our second client. So once we hit join on this client, as you can see, we get a client, the client connected, that's this client. So this client's just connected, and this is currently the client's ID. And once we hit, okay, let's hit create on this client. Okay, so there we go. As you can see, it displays clients connected right here, and it displays the exact same ID we have in this client right there, because that's the second client that just connected. So what happens when we close this? As you can see, it shows clients disconnected, and it shows the ID of that client. So let's launch another preview. Okay, so once again, windows side by side. Okay, so here we have this, and let's click on join, and we have this. So it shows a new client. The client's just connected. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's copy the ID from this client and paste it in this client. Now let's take out. Okay, I'll move this to the side. Here we go. I'll move this right here, and so let's connect. And once we hit on connect right here. Okay, so we connect right here. There we go. So we have our player 1. Now we're controlling. I'll just cover that. And there we go. We're presently controlling this window. As you can see, this window is active. Let's overlay this. This window is currently active, and this window is running. So once we press right, as you can see, it's moving on this other window right here. Let's activate this window, and now we're controlling it from this window. Once again, so it works. There we go. Okay, so now this is still a local server, and it would only run on your machine. So when releasing your game, you need to deploy to Node.js compatible hosting like Heroku. So that's what we'll be doing right now. So we'll be creating a custom server, but this time it would be online. Okay, so let's do that. So let's close this, and let's close this. Okay, and now we can close this terminal. We don't need it anymore. Okay, so let's open GDevelop. Let's go to our P2P right here, And so I'm going to disable this and add a new event, add a condition. So at the beginning of the scene, here we go. Okay, so add an action. Let's connect to a custom server. Here we go. This is a custom. I'm connected to a broker server right here. Let's like this. And let's head over to heroku.com. Okay, so now if you're releasing your game, you cannot use the local, the custom local server. Now you deploy one to a Node.js compatible hosting like Heroku. So I'll show you how to do that. So first of all, let's head over to heroku.com. There we go. Okay, so this is what the website looks like, and you need to sign up. Okay, so you need to sign up and fill in all your details. Okay, so you have to fill in your name, your last name, your email, your company name, your role. Yeah, you have to fill one of these in. So you have to fill in your country, your primary development language. Any would do. If you're not a developer, you can just type in "I'm not a developer." You still get an account. Okay, so once you have an account, it should look like this, and I have this right here. Okay, so next we need to head over to Heroku buttons, so just type that in. Okay, so Heroku, there we go. There we go. So Heroku buttons, and right here. So you need to select this, which is elements.heroku.com. Let's open that. And you should arrive on a page like this. These are the elements. So you need to search for an element, which would be pair.js. And hit the search. Okay, so if you're not on the buttons tab, you need to hit it. We have the add-ons, we have all elements, and for this we're using the buttons. So on the buttons tab, right here, so we're using the pair.js server. There are kind of others here, but I would advise you use this, which is the pair.js server. It has the most stars and forks. So let's select this, and there we go. So we get to this page which shows all about pair.js, and now you need to hit on deploy to Heroku right here. So deploy, and there we go. So it should bring you to this page. Still loading. Okay, so it should bring you to this page and ask for an app name. You can fill in whatever app name you want. So for this, I'll name this P2P dash tutorials. So there's actually, okay, so there are rules to naming. I think it only contains lowercase, there we go, lowercase letters, numbers, and dashes, so you cannot use underscores. There we go. So choose a region. There are currently 2 regions. Okay, so set that to the United States. So deploy app, and it should start this. So first it creates your app, it configures the environment, it builds the app. This should be the longest process right here. Then after that, it runs the scripts and scale dynos and deploy to Heroku. Okay, so pause this video and come back once it's done. Okay, so that's complete. We have the build app, run script, and it's now deployed. Okay, so let's click on manage app. And we need to get the URL. You don't need to focus on anything here, so just go all the way to the settings and let's get this. Okay, so scroll all the way to the bottom right here. So your app can be found at this. Let's open this, and we get this. So name pair server, that shows there is a server on this domain right here. So from this URL, all we need is the subdomain right here and the domain, right? So let's copy all this. So we don't need the protocol, which is this HTTPS right here, just the subdomain and the domain. So copy this. Let's go back to gdevelop right here. Open this right here. So our host, now fill in our host and paste that right here. So it should display p2ptutorials.herokuapp.com. Okay, so now next for the ports, we'd use the default port number, which is 443. There we go. For the paths, a slash would do. There we go. So you don't need a key, and for the SSL enabled, set that to yes. Okay, so let's try this out now. Let's go to our lobby and let's preview this. Launch another preview. Okay, so we have 2 previews from running. So let's join here and let's create here. And there we go. That's the ID. So we have deployed our app now So we now have a server. So this is way better because it is not recommended to use that server, which is the default server. You should use your own, just like we've done right here. Okay, so the default server is not operated by GDevelop and GDevelop teams. So the GDevelop team is not responsible for anything. Is not responsible if anything goes wrong using that server. So let's check this out. Copy, paste, and connect. So there we go. That's it. There we go. So we now have an online multiplayer game right here. There we go. So once deployed, this would work perfectly. So there we go. That's how to create an online multiplayer game with the GDevelop peer-to-peer communication. There we go. Okay, so I'll leave a link in the description to download the project further if you want to learn further. I would also keep the server running, so just check the description. A link would be there to download this project further, and you'd also get the top-down game. This is it. So the events are already there, so all you have to do once you get this is change it right here. So in our P2P, so you just change the scene to that. There we go. So you change it right here to the top-down game. So there we go. That's it. Thanks for watching.